Welcome, Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce members. This is Drew Camp, President and CEO of the Council Bluffs Chamber of Commerce, and we're here with Shawna Anderson to do a candidate interview for state legislature. She's on the ballot for November 3rd, and as you might recall, the absentee voting does start next week as well, so obviously a very important time to be getting educated about the candidates on the ballot. Shawna, thank you very much for being with us.
I'm glad to be with you.
Well, thanks again. We are excited to kind of get right into the questions. And the first question that we have is, what is the top issue Council Bluffs and Southwest Iowa are facing, and how would you address it in the legislature if elected?
Well, first off, it's really hard to pick one top issue. That is really difficult, especially right now with COVID going on. But I feel like COVID has exposed a lot of the issues that we kind of knew were there and have, brought them more into the limelight. So if I had to pick one, I would say our wages. Our minimum wage has not raised in over 12 years. It's exceedingly difficult to keep good workers in the state. We have a lot of, especially, in our area, Southwest Iowa, that go across the river to work for better wages. So it's taking away from our tax base. It's taking away from our workforce. We really need to work on raising the minimum wage. And I think, that's something quite simply done within the legislature, speaking with, other House members and turning it over to start writing some legislation to start making that happen.
Yeah, because a few years ago, there was a big conversation about minimum wage, more so insofar of preemption of not letting localities go about it and letting the state make that decision. So yeah, that'd be an interesting conversation if it could be started up at the state on a state level to kind of bring down and trickle down into the local governments. As far as this next question, what is the top statewide issue you see needing to be addressed, and how would you work to resolve that issue?
Well, of course, wages again,
Yeah.
but I don't want to talk about the same issue over and over again. So we will go with healthcare on this one.
Okay.
Especially me living in rural Oakland, we've lost a lot of our healthcare facilities. Medicaid privatization means that our healthcare providers aren't getting paid in a timely fashion. So they are, working on increasing debt, having a hard time making ends meet. Those facilities are getting closed, which leads to people not having access to the healthcare. They have to drive further to go see a doctor. Mental health care is a huge issue in the state of Iowa. And I know there's been a lot of work done to help expand that some. I think we need to look at doing a lot of telehealth when it comes to mental health care. I know for a lot of people that I've spoken with through the years, it's hard for them to make those appointments that are necessary to stay on track with their mental health care because of jobs and so on and so forth. You're working 9 to 5, that's when office hours are. It makes it really hard if you need to be seen once every other week to be able to make those appointments happen. And I think the telehealth care would definitely help a lot where that comes into play.
And that's interesting and timely because we actually had a coffee and contacts event this morning with Crossroads of Western Iowa, and those very topics were talked about for about an hour.
Oh, interesting. Yay.
Yeah, so it's kind of coincidental. I thought I'd note that. As you look at the biggest opportunity, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for the state going forward?
I think we should really take this opportunity to become top of the class in education again. We, have an ability to start integrating some programs with our schools to where high school students can start to learn trades while they're in high school and possibly graduate, either being, right on the cusp of starting their career or even walking off that graduation stage and starting their career. We have to invest more in our education in our schools, definitely our pre-K through 12, and look at a lot more helping out those colleges and so on and so forth, because without education, we can't grow. We need to help our Iowans be able to grow and want to stay here, without having those good educations to get you out the door and find a good job in the state that you grew up in and you love. We're not going to keep good Iowans here.
And that's a critical point. And it's one of those pieces that at the Chamber, we're fortunate we just hired a workforce development coordinator, and one of the biggest entities that that individual is working with is, like you said, the schools and the community college, and obviously the employers too, but being a conduit between those two. And it's so important to be sure that we're connecting those employers, like you said, for that, to make sure that people are work ready. And when you look at working with the business community in the chamber, obviously we're the voice of the business community here in Council Bluffs and Potawatomi County and Southwest Iowa. And, how do you see yourself working with the chamber and the business community if elected?
Well, to start off with, I am a small business owner in the community. Myself and my business partner, we have a salon in Council Bluffs, and have been there for 11 years. So I know what it is to have a small business and the struggles and the things that both a small business does for our community, and the reasons that we're there and to help when it comes to jobs and all of those sorts of things. We definitely need to focus a lot on our smaller businesses. Not just because I'm a small business owner, but because they're the lifeblood of the state. The bigger corporations, they bring in jobs, they bring in a lot of great things, but without those small businesses and the little niche boutiques and so on and so forth, we lose our personality as a community. It's those little, mom and pop places down Main Street, so to say, that really kind of make communities come alive and do a lot of work for the communities.
And that's one of the things I think COVID has really opened our eyes to, is obviously the implications and impacts to small business. And that's one thing we as a chamber have been really happy to be able to support, is help our small businesses during this time, amongst other things. As we look at some of the top policy issues that we as a chamber, advocacy is one of the pillars of any chamber. Some of the top ones at the state level are really rest on income tax reform, economic development assistance mechanisms. And what I mean by that is really, your Iowa Economic Development Authority budget and your tax credits within Iowa Economic Development Authority that help us attract and retain jobs. Tax increment financing, which is, that local economic development tool that we're able to use here locally within Council Bluffs, as well as at the county. And also placemaking initiatives. And really with placemaking, what I classify that as is really, the bringing of amenities to attract and retain talent. And how will you work to address some of those issues, some of our priority issues, and partner with the business community once again in doing so?
Well, again, I think, there's a big issue, like you said, with COVID. It's definitely brought a lot to light. And, I think that we really need to focus on a lot of those tax initiatives and such being placed on the smaller businesses, helping those businesses that, when the band needs new uniforms, those are the businesses that are like, heck yeah, I'll donate, I'll sponsor. Those are the businesses that when, a community member is trying to raise money for their cancer treatment, those are the businesses that, will give a basket or, throw $20 or a gift certificate or whatever it can help to raise those funds. I think we need to look at a lot of tax credits to help keep some of those doors open, most of those doors open, especially after COVID. I think a lot of these businesses would have continued to thrive and done wonderfully. A lot of them had closure time, and, the business has definitely not been quite the same since things have opened back up. And I know, for me personally, the workforce development and the different initiatives that were there to help those businesses have done a beautiful job. So I definitely support a lot of those initiatives.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. And it sounds like you were able to take advantage of some of those like state programs like the Iowa Small Business Relief Fund and things like that were so important early on to help bridge the gap.
Yes. And I would really love to look at, trying to simplify some of those things to make it easier, especially when something sudden like COVID hits. It would be great to simplify some of those initiatives and how to do the paperwork when it comes to, if we look back at the flooding that happened suddenly, I think we kind of lose thought on the fact that some issues come up just all of a sudden and we're not prepared. So being more prepared for issues that might suddenly come up.
Yeah, that's certainly fair, especially in an area like you said that can be impacted so much by rising waters of a major river, amongst other things. And when you look at your unique skill sets, what do you bring to the position that you can propose to voters that are unique skills that you have?
Well, especially when it comes to the chamber, like I said, I am a small business owner, but mostly in my business, I'm a hairstylist and I own a salon. So for over 20 years, I have listened. I communicate well. I enjoy hearing what people have to say. So I'm a good listener, and I care about people immensely, maybe to a fault at times. But yeah, those community members that have walked through our doors for years have become family. And so the issues that they sit down and they talk to me about, about how are they going to afford to put mom where she can be safe as she's aging and those sorts of things, they have become personal issues for me. Um, so it just means that I'm going to work that much harder to make sure that our people are taken care of as well as humanly possible.
And the last thing, last question I have is along kind of those same lines, but why should voters cast a ballot for you on November 3rd, or obviously starting up here next week with absentee?
Anytime from October 5th on, right?
Yeah, we got to make
Um,
sure they know that.
well, it's always hard to talk about yourself and about, your good qualities. But I would say, again, good listener. I enjoy talking to the people, and that's what made me get into this race. Volunteering with other campaigns and hearing what people's concerns are and realizing, we can do better. There are things that we can do better. I am kind, strong-hearted, and would lead and take care of Iowans with all the empathy in the world, because that's just who I am. And I'm good at having those conversations when it comes to working with other legislators, and, even listening to the lobbyists and having those conversations to figure out, maybe possible issues that I haven't put thought into. Being able to communicate that, listen, take note, research, and make the best possible decisions for Iowans.
And I'll say two quick things. If you are elected, just so you know, I've been a registered lobbyist down at the State House in my time in Ames for the last couple of years. So I'd welcome opportunities to work with you if you are elected to the office. But you mentioned the word empathy, and I just want to mention something. I had the good fortune a couple of years ago. Doris Kearns Goodwin spoke at an event I was at. And if you're not familiar with her, she's a presidential historian, brilliant mind, wrote Team of Rivals, those kinds of books. And I had a chance to ask her one question, and I said, all this research you've done on the likes of Lincoln, FDR, Lyndon Baines Johnson, Teddy Roosevelt, all these great leaders. I said, what's one single trait you can say that they all had that made them impactful and effective? And the word she used was empathy. So I'm glad to hear you say that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I love sharing that story because it's very cool. And that's a word that really resonates with me. It did even before then. But when you hear someone who has those experiences and that sets of knowledge on leaders such as that, it's an exciting thing to think of. But
well, thank you so much.
Oh yeah, sure. No problem. And, Shawna, thank you for being with us here today. I really enjoyed interviewing with you and really getting to talk to you a little bit. And we look forward to providing this as a great resource to our chamber members.
And I look forward to talking to you more up at the State House.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Shawna. It was great talking to you.
Thank you.